This is the fourth time in the past 5 years that my longtime friend David and I have taken this summer kayaking trip in the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area on the border between the states of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Here we are putting in at Dingman's Ferry. Using a trailer allows us to pack the boats, taking our time in the comfort of home. Then it's just a matter of sliding kayaks off the trailer, climbing aboard, and paddling away. I am one of those people who likes planning for a trip more than actually going. I've been making lists, gathering gear, and anticipating this trip for months. I wanted to make a grand YouTube video and intended to use 3 cameras, a GoPro mounted on the deck in front of me, a handheld camcorder, and a small waterproof camera that I would give to David. I could even use my cell phone to take pictures and video if I wanted, but chose to keep my phone turned off during the trip. Not much more to do now, other than to wave goodbye and be on our way. Here I am attempting to display my best paddling technique, pushing with my top hand on my Graham kayak Greenland-style paddle, all with the spindly Dingman's Ferry Bridge in the background. "95% of the reason Dave goes on this trip is for the fishing. Me being not quite as enthusiastic as him. I quickly realized that I didn't want to burden him carrying a camera and taking pictures, so I kept the little camera to myself. The daytime temperature was predicted to be in the 90s for the 3 days of our trip, so we took along plenty of water, wore hats, covered up, and wore sunscreen.
So my theory is the only place where we're going to catch him today is in the rapids. Because of the heat.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just had the
Actually, a
one
little cooler
little
than
sunny
I-
bite.
Cooler than I expected. Yeah. We did very little paddling most of the time, letting the current take us along as we fished and enjoyed the scenery going by. You know what they say about the plans of mice and men. I was in a stretch of moving water just 1 hour into our trip, wanting to make my way to the shore when this happened. I'd never felt or heard such a violent hit while in my kayak. I pulled over to the shore, checked the boat, and calmed myself. Finding that I was still afloat, I resumed my travel down the river. Camping along the Delaware was permitted only in designated areas, which means the downed tree limbs for firewood in those spots gets used up. David found it much easier to take firewood along with us instead of us having to scrounge for it at the campsites. We each carried a bag of firewood on the rear deck of our boats. Now, I had been paddling my kayak on local rivers and lakes since spring, but the boat was always empty. Now I was on the water fully loaded, which made the boat feel and handle quite a bit differently. The heavy bag of firewood at the back of the kayak was raising the bow much higher than the stern. I moved the bag of wood toward the cockpit, but nothing I did seemed to make any difference in how the boat felt on the water. I found out the weight of the firewood wasn't the problem once I got to camp and unloaded the boat. The rock I hit opened a 4-inch gash at the rear of the kayak, right beside the skeg. Without me knowing it, this flooded the rear compartment. The accident occurred a mere 1 hour, 1.5 miles into a 3-day, 21-mile trip. I spent the next 5 hours without realizing how badly crippled my boat was, instead blaming the high bow and ill handling on the weight of the firewood. I have always carried repair tape on every type of outdoor adventure I have ever been on. This was the first occasion I had to use it, and was glad I had it. I loaded my boat the next morning, and it now floated with a much more even keel. I never liked running rapids, ever since I was a boy, either in a raft or kayak. The waters of the middle Delaware are pretty tame, and whitewater purists would poo-poo me for being apprehensive. But I got spooked when I punched a hole in my boat, and my head just wasn't in the right place for the remainder of the trip. I tensed up every time I heard the rushing sound of approaching rapids, and all I wanted to do was to get through each one as quickly as possible. Wallpack Bend. We all get weaker with age, and there is a common belief that you are hale and hearty one day, then suddenly feeble the next. I'll be 72 next month, and have noticed decreasing vitality, especially in the past year. I'm glad I had David along. He made at least twice as many trips ferrying gear between the boats and campsite as I did. I had plans to make a grand YouTube documentary of our trip, but soon reserved my strength for the day's paddling instead of photography and fishing. The Weather Service was adamant in their prediction of absolutely no chance of precipitation for the entire 3 days of the trip. So, you know what occurred. We'd gotten to camp on the second day and had emptied the kayaks of our equipment when we noticed how dark it had gotten. A crack of thunder in the distance spurred us into action, setting up a tarp. We spent the next couple of hours enjoying a steady summer shower as we cooked and ate dinner under the tarp.
Oh yeah, good size. Oh, jeez. There we go. Oh, he's small. I caught 4 big ones back there. Then I got my line caught in the bottom. My lure in the bottom. I can't believe this guy fought so hard. They're super strong. You know, those rapids back there were loaded with fish. I caught 4 and I lost 2 in about 20 minutes.
Here is one of the many rapids on the river. Some would call this just a riffle, because it doesn't have the white-capped haystacks of water present in more angry stretches of water. But no matter how innocent looking, you still have to pay attention, use common sense, and what you have learned about fast-moving water, and always wear your life vest. Van Camp's Nose. It's a big boulder on the Pennsylvania shore beside Depew Island. It is named after Isaac Van Campen, who ran a nearby inn during the 1700s. Smoke from U.S. and Canadian wildfires caused hazy skies that blocked the view of Kittatinny Ridge and offended our noses and throats.
Came down past those rapids and I saw one jumping. I circled back in the eddy and cast out and I caught him. It was pretty cool.
This is where we stopped for lunch this day. Setting up our chairs on the bank, eating ham and cheese sandwiches, and attempting to spit cherry pits into our boats. Our 3-day trip between Dingman's Ferry and Smithfield Beach totaled 21 miles. We camped the first night at Tom's River and the second at Alosa. My Garmin GPS says that when we were moving, our average speed was 2.25 miles per hour and only 1.4 miles per hour, including the time spent lingering, fishing, and having lunch. We were on the water about 6 hours each day.
Howdy-ho.
The narrow keyhole design of the cockpit of the kayak I was using allows you to press your knees up against the underside of the deck and brace yourself for paddling and tilting the boat up on its side for turning. But the narrowness makes getting your legs in and out of the boat much more difficult.
It's hard to get in there.
A sit-inside kayak requires that you use your arms and legs to raise your butt out of the seat to get out of the boat. And my weak muscles now making that almost impossible to do.
Right.
After 3 summers paddling my Eddyline Sitka,
Closer.
I have made the decision to sell it and purchase a much more friendly to use sit-on-top kayak.
Okay.
Let's wind up both in the water.
Yeah.
Ass over teacups.
Okay.
Despite my mishap and apprehension, many fish were caught, and we both had a great time. The only thing I complained about was having to hang up all my water-soaked gear in my basement to dry out once I got home. As far as the hole in the boat, I repaired it myself with some DevCon plastic mender and fiberglass tape, good as new. With the fiberglass reinforcement, that area now is actually stronger than the original.